The crash and the cry for help, asterisk. The sky tore apart with fire as the alien ship broke through the planet's thick clouds. Smoke trailed behind the silver hull, twisting like black ribbons in the wind. Inside the cockpit, an alien girl struggled. With the controls, her 3 fingers flying over blinking symbols, her heart pounded fast in her chest, and her breath came in sharp gasps. She wasn't ready to die. Not like this. Not so far from home. The ship shook hard. Warning alarms screaming all around her. She tried to steer toward the green valley below, but one engine exploded before she could stabilize. The last thing she saw before impact was a flash of trees and rocks rushing up at her face. The crash was loud enough to wake the birds and scare the beasts. Flames licked at the wreckage, and pieces of metal lay scattered across the hillside. In the middle of it all, the alien girl lay still. Blood leaking from her shoulder and mouth, her breathing was shallow, her body twitching from pain. She blinked, trying to stay awake, and reached weakly for the comm device. Shaky hand hit the emergency signal button, sending out a distress beacon through space. Miles away, a human sat inside a broken-down shuttle, hidden beneath a rocky ledge. His name was Elias, field medic from Earth, stranded during a failed rescue mission. He'd been alone on this strange planet for 2 weeks now, living off emergency rations. And luck, when his radio blinked to life with the alien distress signal, he almost didn't believe it. Unknown vessel down, life signs detected. The alert repeated again and again. He looked out at the dark sky, then at his medkit, and made a decision in seconds. He pulled on his gear, grabbed his rifle, and ran into the forest without a second thought. The terrain was rough, branches slapping his face and thorns cutting through his sleeves. The signal grew stronger with each step, and soon smoke filled the air. Elias found the wreckage burning like a bonfire against the night. He covered his nose and moved closer, scanning for survivors. That's when he saw her, half buried under a metal beam, her skin pale blue and glowing faintly. She didn't look human, but she looked alive, barely. He rushed forward, lifted the beam off her with effort, and checked for a pulse. Her blood was thick and dark purple, and it flowed too fast from her wounds. He grabbed a clotting patch and pressed it to her chest, whispering softly, "You're not dying here. Not today," he said through clenched teeth. But as he tried to inject a healing agent, her body rejected it. Her cells fought the medicine, and her vitals dropped fast. No, Elias muttered. Digging into his pack, she needed blood, but alien blood wasn't something he had. Then an idea hit him, dangerous, crazy, but maybe her only chance. He pulled out a transfusion tube and hesitated for only a second. "I hope your immune system likes surprises," he whispered, and stabbed the needle into his own arm. Human. Blood flowed into her vein, drop by drop. At first, nothing happened, just silence and the hiss of fire in the background. Then her fingers twitched. Her chest lifted slightly, and her skin shimmered. Her wounds began to close slowly, and her breathing grew stronger. Elias sat beside her, watching, sweating, weakening with every drop of blood he lost. "You better make it worth it," he joked weakly, his vision spinning. The alien girl opened her eyes just once, locking onto him with deep silver pupils. Then she passed out again, her body still, but no longer dying. Elias stayed by her side. Through the night, too tired to move, he built a small fire, shielded her from the wind, and kept checking her vitals, whatever her species was. Her body was doing something strange. The wounds were gone by morning, and her temperature rose fast.
Oh.
She trembled like she was in some kind of fever dream, mumbling in a language he didn't understand. Elias gave her water and covered her with a heat blanket. Trying to calm her, he didn't know what he had started with that one drop of blood. But he knew one thing: he wasn't leaving her alone. Not after saving her life. The morning sun revealed more smoke in the distance. More ships might be coming, hers or worse. Elias loaded his rifle and checked the perimeter, ready to fight if he had to. Behind him, the alien girl stirred and let out a small breath. Her eyes opened slowly, and she whispered one word, barely loud enough to hear. "Why?" "Help." Elias turned to her, gave her a tired smile, and replied softly. "Because you were dying," he said. and I couldn't just watch. She stared at him like she was seeing something strange, something impossible and deep inside her body. Something ancient began to awaken, signs of recovery and something more. The wind carried the smell of burnt metal across the forest as the alien girl stirred again. Her eyes blinked open slowly, adjusting to the soft morning light breaking. Through the trees, she wasn't in her ship anymore. She was lying on warm earth. Under a rough blanket, something inside her felt different. Not just the pain, not just the shock, it was deeper. Like her body was alive in a way it had never been before. Her fingers dug into the dirt as she pushed herself up. But weakness still held her down. Then she saw him, the human from last night. Sitting nearby with a tired face, watching her carefully, he gave her a small nod and said nothing. Just handed her a flask of water. She took it, sniffed the contents, then drank slowly, never breaking eye contact. Her voice was rough when she spoke, in broken human language. "You saved me," she said, her words dragging. The human, Elias, gave a half-smile and nodded again. "Yeah," he replied softly, barely. She looked down at her arm and saw a band where the needle had entered. Something clicked in her mind. Her species couldn't accept foreign blood, yet her body felt alive, fast, burning, like energy was running under her skin. "Your blood," she whispered, more to herself than him. Elias leaned forward and answered, "Only thing I had." Her eyes widened slowly, like she was realizing something dangerous. "No one has done this before," she said, gripping her chest. "My kind. This should have killed me." Elias looked confused, but didn't respond right away. He had already seen strange reactions, her skin glowing slightly, her wounds closing faster than human healing. What he didn't know was that her people had old records warnings written in sacred scripts. Mixing blood with other species was not just forbidden, it was feared, but those were just stories. It's ancient and distant. Never real until now. She stood slowly, using a tree for balance, and felt her heartbeat thundering. Her senses were sharper. She could hear birds from far away, feel insects crawling under leaves, and her skin burned where the blood had flowed. Not with pain, but with something she couldn't name. It was heat, pressure, like something deep inside was growing or shifting. She clutched her stomach suddenly, gasping, and Elias rushed to her side. "What's wrong?" he asked, holding her arm carefully. "I don't know," she whispered, eyes wide with fear. "My body is changing." They sat together near the fire while she explained what she could. About her species, about how the blood should have been rejected or shut her organs down. Instead, it was bonding with her cells, fusing, rewriting something inside her. Elias couldn't understand the science, but he saw the fear in her eyes. He stayed close, trying to calm her, not with words, but presence. Later that day, while Elias was out searching for more supplies, she found a mirror inside his bag. She stared at her reflection in silence. Touching her face, her glowing skin, her pupils had changed slightly, more like a human's now, rounder, softer. Her heartbeat was slower, more like his rhythm, and her thoughts weren't only her own anymore. She could feel something else, something faint, something alive. She lay down again, covering herself, but the feeling grew stronger. Warmth spread through her stomach. Her hands pressed gently against it. Her breathing became shallow, and flashes of memory danced through her head. Elias's voice, his face, the blood. She closed her eyes and whispered a small prayer in her native tongue. Then a single tear ran down her cheek as the truth settled inside her like a stone. She was pregnant, not in the way her kind expected. Not from ritual or science, but from something deeper, something ancient and lost to history. Her body had accepted his blood, and now it carried something new, a life that wasn't supposed to exist, a child of two worlds. She didn't know what it would become more if her people would allow it to live. But she knew one thing for certain. Her certain Elias had saved more than her life. He had changed her future, and now she couldn't let him go. When Elias returned with berries and clean water, she met him with new eyes, eyes that held fear, yes, but also something close to wonder. "I need to tell you something," she said, voice shaking. He looked at her carefully, sensing the change. "What is it?" he asked, his tone calm but alert. She placed his hand on her stomach and whispered, "There is life." Inside me, Elias froze, trying to understand what she meant, but before he could speak. The ground shook with the sound of engines in the sky. Another ship was coming and marked. Heavy and heading straight for them, he reached for his rifle. But the girl grabbed his hand. "We're not alone anymore," she said, her voice trembling not from fear, but from something much bigger. The return of the hunters, the sky darkened as a shadow passed over the trees. Leaves rustled like whispers, and birds scattered into the wind. Elias raised his eyes to the clouds and saw it. A black triangular ship, silent but heavy, floating. Low above the forest, its lights swept the ground in long white beams scanning for life. He didn't recognize the markings, but the alien girl did. The moment she saw it, her body tensed, and her breath caught in her throat. "That's not my people," she whispered, her voice shaking. "They are hunters." Elias didn't wait for more. He grabbed his rifle, slung his bag over his shoulder, and helped her stand. They had to move fast, and they had to vanish. But the girl was slower now, her body changing inside, responding to the pregnancy. In ways neither of them understood, she winced with each step, one hand pressed tightly over her stomach. The life growing inside her wasn't ordinary, and it drained her energy by the minute. Still, she pushed forward, following Elias through the brush, deeper into the woods, behind them. The hunter ship landed with a heavy hiss. Metal ramps unfolded. An armored figure stepped out, tall, faceless, and cruel. Their scanners lit up with heat signatures. Locking onto the area where the wreckage had once burned, they began their search without speaking, weapons drawn and sensors glowing. Elias led her to a cave hidden behind a waterfall. It was small, damp, and cold. But it was cover. The girl sank down against the stone wall, her breathing shallow. He knelt beside her, checking her pulse and wiping sweat from her forehead. "You're burning up again," he whispered. "Your body's still reacting." She nodded weakly, her silver eyes dim. "My kind. If you were made in labs." "Not like this." Her words broke into pieces as pain spread through her chest. Elias didn't know what to do. His training didn't cover alien pregnancies or blood mutations, but he stayed close, holding her hand tightly. Outside, the hunters moved closer, their scanners beeping louder. One of them paused. Turning its head toward the cave's direction, its helmet clicked as it zoomed in, picking up faint heat readings. It raised its weapon and began walking toward the water curtain that hid the cave. Inside, the alien girl suddenly sat upright, eyes glowing faint blue. Her hand gripped Elias's arm with surprising strength. "They're near," she said, her voice strange, like something else was speaking through her, too near, before Elias could react. The hunter stepped through the waterfall, weapon raised. The cave filled with the sound of static and humming energy. But something unexpected happened. The girl stood up, her body shining like metal touched by lightning. The hunter froze, sensors confused, unable to identify the new signals coming. Off her body, she lifted her hand, and a pulse of blue light burst outward. It hit the hunter square in the chest and threw it backward through the water with a crash. Elias stared at her, stunned. "What was that?" he asked. "I don't know," she replied, shaking. "But it came from you." "And me." She collapsed into his arms, her skin dimming. The energy burst had drained her completely. More hunters would come, and they wouldn't wait to talk. Elias looked down at her. Then at the path beyond the cave. He knew he had one option: fight or be hunted, but now he wasn't just protecting an injured alien. He was protecting something new, something born of both their blood. He placed her gently on the ground, stood up, and took a deep breath. Then he stepped outside, rifle in hand. Facing the dark forest where the hunters waited, he wasn't going to run anymore. In the distance, more shadows moved through the trees. The hunt had begun, but Elias had already made up his mind. He would fight until his last breath because she was worth it. And so was the life growing inside her. The ancient. Warning, the forest fell silent after the battle. Smoke curled from broken trees, where energy blasts had scorched the bark. 3 hunter bodies lay still near the cave entrance, their armor cracked, their weapons shattered. Elias stood among them, breathing heavily, bruised and bleeding, but alive. Behind him, the alien girl rested inside the cave, still unconscious. Her body glowing faintly with soft blue light. He had never seen power like the one she used. It came from nowhere wild, silent and unstoppable. She didn't even know how she had done it, but it had saved them both. Now, he knelt by her side, watching her breathe, trying to understand what was happening to her, to both of them. Then suddenly, she opened her eyes, not like before, not afraid, not weak. This time, her gaze was steady, her voice low and distant. As she whispered, "I saw something." Elias leaned closer, confused. "Saw what?" "A memory," she said, "but it wasn't mine." She sat up slowly, her hand on her stomach. "It was old. Very old. Like a vision burned into my blood." He watched as she traced strange symbols into the dirt beside her, symbols glowing. Faintly as she drew, "My people once feared something like this," she said. "Long ago, there was a warning written in our archives." She looked up, her voice trembling. "They said if the blood of another species ever mixed with our own, specially, one with fire in its soul, it would create something beyond control." Elias didn't understand what she meant, but her tone made his chest tighten. They called it the Alaris bond, a merging of bodies that would bring either life or destruction. She touched her chest, where the human blood still flowed through her veins. "This bond. It's inside me now. And the child is a result of it." Her skin shimmered briefly, glowing brighter as the life inside her responded. Elias stepped back in shock, watching as small pulses of light moved beneath her skin like sparks, her eyes shut tight, pain flashing across her face. "It's growing fast," she said, gasping, "too fast." Elias reached for his medkit, trying to stabilize her heartbeat, but her body was rejecting every standard method again. Then she spoke a word in her language, a name or command he couldn't tell. The cave wall behind her began to glow with strange blue lines, revealing a hidden panel. Elias stared as it opened to reveal a dusty artifact, an orb, with symbols just like the ones she drew. "This was given to our scouts long ago," she whispered, "to be opened only if the forbidden bond ever returned." She pressed her hand to the orb, and it activated, projecting an image into the air. A figure appeared, tall, female, and unmistakably. Her species wearing armor marked with gold. The figure spoke in her language, but subtitles formed in Ilias's language beneath the image. "If the Alaris bond has awakened, it means fate has chosen a path none can change." The message said, "Protect the bearer, guard the union, for this child will either unite stars or burn them." The message faded, and the orb dimmed. Silence filled the cave again, broken only by the crackle of the nearby fire. Elias stared at her, the weight of those words pressing on him. "Unite stars. Or burn them," he repeated quietly. The girl nodded slowly, holding his gaze. "It means my people will hunt me if they know," she said. "Some will try to kill me. Others may try to take the child for their own purpose." Elias clenched, his fists, understanding the danger more clearly than ever before. "We need to disappear," he said. "No signals, no trackers." She hesitated, then took the orb and crushed it in her hand, the pieces vanishing into blue dust. "No record," she said. "This stays between us." Outside, the wind howled as night fell again over the planet. In the dark sky, other ships searched the stars, unaware of what was growing quietly below. Elias built a stronger barrier at the cave entrance, sharpening sticks and hiding heat signatures. The girl slept again, but her glow never faded. Pulsed now, steady and rhythmic. The child inside her wasn't normal, it was something new. Something never born before, and if the ancient warning was true, the galaxy wasn't ready for what came next. The Queen's demand, a sharp sound, pierced the early light like metal scraping against stone. Elias jolted awake, hand already reaching for his weapon. The alien girl was gone, her spot cold, blanket tossed aside. He rushed toward the cave opening, heart pounding like a drum just beyond the waterfall. He saw her standing with her back turned, facing a figure cloaked in silver and black, A royal transport ship hovered behind the figure. Hovering silently above the ground like a predator, dozens of armored guards waited near its ramp, watching. Closely but not moving, the girl's posture was tense, her hands clenched at her sides. Elias moved closer, rifle raised, until her voice stopped him. "Don't," she said. Without turning, "They won't hurt me." The figure stepped forward, pulling back its hood to reveal a face carved from stone, elegant, proud and ancient. It was the Empress herself, ruler of her kind. Feared across sectors for her cold justice and impossible demands, she looked nothing like the girl, but the family resemblance was there, eyes of silver, high cheekbones. In that same quiet fire beneath the surface, you summoned the storm. The Empress said to her daughter, voice deep and calm, "You should have died in the crash." The girl stood tall, but her voice trembled. "I survived. Because of him," she said, pointing back toward Elias. "And now I carry something new." The Empress's eyes narrowed, falling on Elias for the first time. Her gaze was cold, calculating like a queen deciding whether to keep or crush a rare insect. "You gave her your blood," she said slowly. "You made the forbidden bond." Elias didn't speak. But he didn't back down either. He walked forward, standing beside the girl. Hand lightly on her arm. "She was dying," he said. "I saved her." The Empress raised one hand, and the guards stepped closer, weapons ready. "You've created something dangerous," she said. "That child inside her, it's not a blessing, it's a variable. It could split galaxies in half." The girl stepped in front of Elias, shielding him. "I won't give it up." She said, "Not to you, not to anyone." The Empress tilted her head slowly, eyes flicking to her daughter's stomach. "Then come with me willingly," she said. "You will be watched, studied, protected if possible, destroyed if necessary." Elias tightened his grip on the rifle, sensing her trap. "This sounds like a prison," he said. "Not protection." "No," the Empress replied. "It's the only chance your species has to survive what's coming." A long silence followed, only the wind whistling through the trees. The alien girl looked from her mother to Elias, torn between duty and fear. Then she did something unexpected. She placed her hand on Elias's chest and spoke loudly, "I name him my life mate." Gasps spread through the guards, weapons lowering slightly in shock. The Empress's eyes widened, then narrowed again. Fury dancing just below the surface. "That tradition is sacred," she snapped. "It binds our blood to his. Do you even understand what you've done?" The girl nodded, her voice calm now. "Yes, I do," she said, "and I'm not afraid." Elias stood still, not knowing what the ritual meant, but feeling the weight of it in her voice. The Empress looked away, anger hidden behind silence. Then she turned to her guards and gave a slow nod. "Let them go," she said, "for now." The guards stepped back, vanishing into the ship, which slowly lifted into the sky. The Empress's voice echoed as she turned away. "This galaxy watches your womb now, daughter," she said. "Pray it brings light, not fire." The transport vanished into the clouds, leaving only silence and wind behind. The girl collapsed to her knees, shaking from the weight of what she had just done. Elias dropped beside her, wrapping his arms around her, holding her close. She whispered against his shoulder. "I made you my life mate," she said. "Now, your life is tied to mine." He didn't fully understand, but somehow, deep inside, he didn't need to. He felt it too. Something ancient had just been set in motion. There was no turning back. Asterisk, the birth of a new bond. Asterisk, lightning streaked across the sky, splitting the clouds with blinding light. The wind howled through the mountains, shaking trees and tearing leaves from their branches. Elias held the alien girl close as the storm raged around them. But the storm outside was nothing compared to the one building inside her body. She cried out suddenly, hands clutched over her stomach. The glow beneath her skin flared brighter than ever before. Her breathing turned ragged, her entire body trembling. "It's happening," she gasped. "Something's changing again." Elias helped her back into the cave, laying her gently on the blankets. She gripped his hand tightly, her fingers ice cold, but her skin burning hot. Inside her, the child was no longer just growing, it was awakening. He watched in awe and fear as her stomach pulsed with energy like a heartbeat. A soft hum filled the air around them, vibrating through the cave walls. "I can feel it," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "It's aware of us, Elias." He didn't know what to do. There were no guides, no manuals for this, only his instinct. And that instinct told him to stay close, to keep her calm. He wiped the sweat from her forehead and whispered to her. "I'm here," he said. "You're not alone." The girl's body arched as another wave of energy passed through her. But this time, something strange happened. Elias felt it too. A sudden warmth flooded his chest, as if their bodies were connected now. His vision blurred. And then he saw something brief like a dream, a starless sky, a single child glowing. In the dark, floating between two worlds, he gasped and pulled back, stunned. "What was that?" he asked, heart racing. The girl reached for him, pulling him close again. "Our bond," she said. "It's not just blood anymore." Their minds had touched for the first time. Now Elias could feel her pain, her fear, her strength, and she could feel his thoughts, his love, his loyalty. They were no longer two separate lives, they were becoming one. Suddenly, the glow in her body stabilized. The child inside stopped pulsing wildly and instead moved gently, calmly. The pain in her face faded, replaced by awe. He or she. "Is it peace now?" she whispered, smiling through tears. "It knew you were close." They sat in silence, her head resting on his chest, the storm outside beginning to fade. The girl's breathing slowed, her body relaxing for the first time in days, but Elias couldn't forget the vision. The starless sky and the glowing child. He looked down at her and asked softly, "What will the galaxy do when they find out?" She closed her eyes, resting her hand on her stomach. "They will fear it," she said, "but they will also wonder. This child is not a weapon, Elias," she added. "It's proof." "Proof of what?" he asked. "That two broken pieces can create something whole." That night, as the fire crackled beside them, Elias stayed awake. He stared at the stars above, wondering which ones would call the child a savior and which ones would try to erase it. The girl slept peacefully, but her hand never left his. She had chosen him, and he had chosen her. Not because of duty or fate, but because in the darkest hour, they stood together and together. They had created something that no science, no war, no fear could take away. It was more than survival. It was more than love. It was the birth of a new bond, unbreakable, unstoppable, and just beginning. The choice that changed the galaxy. The message came at dawn, a deep pulse through the air. Loud enough to shake birds from the trees, Elias woke with a start. Reaching for his rifle, as the cave vibrated around them, the alien girl sat upright, her eyes already glowing. "It's her," she whispered, "my mother, outside." A massive royal ship hovered silently over the valley. Its shadow covered the trees like a blanket of silence. Below it stood the Empress again, but this time, she wasn't alone. Hundreds had gathered behind her, warriors, elders, and scientists from across their empire. All here for one reason. The child, Elias, and the girl stepped forward, hand in hand. They faced the crowd without fear, the glow from her stomach pulsing softly between them. The Empress raised her hand, and all noise vanished. Then she spoke, voice steady and sharp. "The child lives," she said. "But now we must choose what comes next." Elias felt tension tighten around his heart. He knew what she meant, even without the words. To some in the crowd, the child was a miracle too. Others, it was a threat that should be erased before it could grow. The Empress looked at her daughter, eyes unreadable. "You are my blood," she said. "But you disobeyed every law of our kind. You brought this human into our line." The girl did not flinch. "I brought life," she said, strong and clear. "I brought change." A murmur moved through the crowd, a ripple of voices and fear. The Empress raised a glowing crystal, ancient and sharp. It was the judgment shard used only when life and death hung in balance. "I give you one last choice," she said. "Surrender the child to our temple for containment. Or keep it on, be exiled from every world under our star." Elias looked at the girl, her hand trembling in his. He knew the right choice was not the easy one. But before he could speak, she stepped forward alone. She looked her mother in the eye and said one word. No. Gasps echoed, and weapons were half raised. But the girl stood like stone, her voice never shaking. You may exile me, she said. You may strip my name and title, but I will never give up this child. The Empress stared at her for a long time, then slowly lowered the crystal. No, she said quietly. You will not be exiled. You will be remembered. She turned to the crowd, her voice rising like thunder. This child is not our end, she declared. It is our next beginning. Some dropped their weapons in silence. Others still looked away, but unsure. But a few knelt, heads bowed, recognizing the truth in her words. This union, this human and alien, had broken the rules. Yes. But it had also broken the fear that had ruled for centuries. Later, as the ships left and the valley grew quiet again, Elias stood beside the girl. She leaned into him, her hand resting over the small pulse beneath her skin. You didn't have to stay, she whispered. I wanted to, he replied, always. She smiled softly, eyes full of stars. You changed my fate, she said. And now we've changed the galaxy. He looked toward the horizon, knowing the future would not be easy. There would still be whispers, threats, and those who feared what they didn't understand, but none of it mattered now, because they had made their choice together, a choice that shook empires, rewrote laws, and gave birth to something entirely new. Not just a child, but a symbol of unity, of love, of hope. And it all began with one drop of human blood. The end.